Hello and welcome back, guys. So in this video, we're gonna explore the anatomy of this language, HTML. But before we get into that, I'm gonna give you two more resources. Maybe you can go ahead and bookmark these pages because we're gonna be using them a lot for our research. Now, these two pages is one of them is W3 Schools, and the other one is MDN Docs. So these are really good resources for you to come back to and search for the problems maybe you're facing. uh, they're both excellent resources, just depends on your preference. I actually use both of them from time to time, because as developers you need to become really good at problem solving, and basically you need to become a pro googler, if that makes sense. uh, so I use both of them. It depends on your preference, and we will be using them back and forth to find solutions to the problems we will be facing in this course as I set up the challenges as we will go along. Now, let's go back to HTML. So what is HTML? HTML is a hypertext markup language, and you cannot create websites anymore just using HTML because you basically need CSS, JavaScript, React, and 1,000 other things for them. But back in the old days, websites used to be made using only HTML, and they used to be really ugly, like really horrible. So I've opened a couple of old websites over here. You can take a look at them. These are really, ancient websites. They were built just using HTML, and as you can see, they look really horrible. But, you know, as they say, basics are the basics for a reason. Actually, this one is pretty neat, but I, well, this one is pretty neat actually. But we're gonna be building something like these two over here. Okay, so the websites we're going to be building will be in this module. In the first website you will build, just to give you an idea of what HTML is, how to use it, how to put something out there on the internet. It will be something like a mixture of these two, probably closer to this one. It will just have some text, uh, some lists, some headings, and whatnot. Anyways, before we get into all of this and we start coding, we need to understand what HTML is. So let's get back to it. So how is HTML written? HTML is basically just a collection of these things that you see. These are called tags. So there is a bracket at the end, and whatever is in the middle of these, like this hello world part, is the content. So HTML has its tags that are called HTML tags, and then we have the content in the middle. So now let's go to W3 Schools, and let's search, let's say, HTML tags. What are HTML tags? Well, it opens a lot of things, but we can just go over here and it will show you a sample code of how HTML is basically written. These will be the tags inside it. There are many different kinds of tags. Now, coming back over here, you can see that there is this in the beginning and there is the same thing at the end with a slash. So this is a closing tag, and in the middle it has the content. Now all HTML elements are not they don't have closing, they're just self-closing. So we can go back again to W3 Schools, and I can search for self-closing tags. And let's see, there are a lot of over here. Okay, HTML elements. Let's read over here. An HTML element is defined by a start tag, some content, and an end tag, like I said. Okay, so like I said, a starting tag, ending tag, and some content in the middle. Now, sometimes it doesn't have an end tag. So you can actually put the name of your tag over here, whether it's h1 or something else. And like for example, there is a p tag, and it will show you that see, h1 has a start tag, it has some content like my first heading, and then it has an end tag. But BR tag, which is a break tag, it doesn't have any content. It doesn't have any end tag. It just provides a space between two elements. Like for example, you wrote, "Hello, my name is," and then you want to write whatever your name is on the next line. So you can just put a BR tag. Now it doesn't need content or anything. So basically HTML is written right like this. You might be thinking, oh, okay, what is H1 then? What is P then? Don't worry, we will get into the names of the tags eventually as we start coding. I just wanted to give you a rough or a broad idea of how HTML code will look like once you start typing it. So this is basically what it will look like. You will start with something, you'll put the content, on what the action should happen. This is basically the action on what it should happen, and then where to close it, and sometimes you don't need to close it. So basically this is how HTML will be written. Now as far as what H1 is, there will be some basic tags that you will need to remember, but don't worry about that. As we start coding and we'll build projects, you will just inevitably just remember them. So H is basically a heading tag, and there are 6 headings. So H1, H2, H3, like this all the way to H6, and they differ in their size. So H1 will be the biggest, and then it goes smaller in size as you go all the way down to H6. And P is the paragraph tag, with just like it's just a paragraph. Now we will start making our website. So let's just close these extra pages that we don't need anymore. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go on our desktop and we're gonna make a folder. We're gonna call it projects, because we're going to put all of our projects in here. And then we're going to go into this project folder, and we're going to create a new folder that's going to be called project 1, because, well, this is our first project. Now if you have Visual Studio Code installed, you can just right click over here and click on open with code. Once it has opened, we can just close this, and I can actually push this to the corner. Now, this is your project 1. It's open. When you make this arrow like this, is straight, it means it's closed. When it's downward facing, it's open. You'll click on a file, this new file, and you're gonna call it index.html. And if you have if you have all of my plugins, one of the plugins is actually for this icon, so you'll have it. If you don't have it, that means you don't have the plugin. Anyways, not really important, but just if you get confused that why is mine showing HTML, well, why is mine showing the 5 and yours is not, well, that's the reason. HTML5 is, by the way, the standard. Like, every language has a new version that is coming out. There is HTML1, HTML2, 3, 4, like this. So now we are at the latest one, which is HTML5. That's why 5 is over there, just if you're confused. You will have made an index.html file. By the way, you can name it whatever you want, but in the industry, the first page, the main page, the home page of a website will be called index. Like that's where the journey of the website begins. So that's why almost all programmers name their home page when they're coding index.html. Now, you know that there are tags. There is an H1 tag, there is a P tag. So let's see them in action, for example. Now, you see when I wrote H1, it automatically completed the other half of the code, which is because, again, one of my extensions does it for me. If you haven't installed all of them, or if you don't know what I'm talking about, go see the previous video. If you don't have this extension, then you will have to write it by yourself, which, again, you can do that. Now, for example, I wrote this tag H1, and then I say something like hello world, which is basically what most programmers write first. And then we had a p tag. So we can just write I am Hamza, I am a developer. I can save it and again right click, and remember I told you to install live server is because now you can open this web page with live server. If you don't have live server, you're gonna have to go into your folder and then double click on index.html, and then it will open up in Google Chrome. But it's just better if you have the extension installed, because if you have the extension installed, it auto updates when we edit the code over here. You won't need to refresh the page or anything. It will just update it on itself. So you see, this is H1. It's clearly like a heading, it's big, it's bold, hello world, and then there is a paragraph. I am Hamza, I'm a developer. So more or less, this is how an HTML website is going to look, and this is how we are going to, move along. Another thing that we need to understand about HTML are attributes. So these are called tags, and this is content, but there are also attributes that define the tag, that and they are basically functions that you do on the tag itself. So for example, I showed you there was BR. Just like BR, there is a tag called HR. It's called horizontal line. It's it's also the same thing. It just gives a space, but it gives a space that you can see. It basically puts a line. So we have opened this with our yep, refresh. You see this line? Basically, this is it. This is what that HR is doing. It's a self-closing tag, which we already discussed. There are closing and self-closing tags. We also search them on W3 schools. So basically, that's it. But now we come to the attributes. So an attribute is inside the tag over here. So for example, one of the attributes is size. So when I write size, it actually appears by itself, again, an extension. So now if I give, let's say it's size of 3, and I save it, and then I reopen it, well, let's refresh it. You can see, I don't know if it's, maybe I need to, okay, zoom in. You can see this has become a little bit thicker, a little bit darker, a little bit, it has increased in size. Now if I go back, and if I increase this size to, let's say, 30, I save it, go back over here, refresh, you can see the size became bigger again. So these over here are called attributes, and there are thousands and thousands of attributes. So maybe it should be HTML tag attributes. Right, over here, HTML attributes. So you see, like for example, there is an image tag, then it has an attribute of source. You don't need to know what these are doing. I'm just trying to explain you that there are tags, and those tags can have attributes. You see, our p tag can have an attribute of style, and then we can do color red, that will make the paragraph red, and so many more. So you can just search, you can read up on them, you can do some research by yourself. Well, wrong website, to see what these are for. But I thought it would be necessary for you guys to understand a little bit that there is a tag, there is the attribute, and then there is a content. So these three things make up an HTML code. Now, I'm going to give you a challenge. So the first challenge will be to create something exactly similar that I have made with, in H1, a p tag, a horizontal break, but add your own info to it. Let's see how you guys do. So do that. I think that's enough for this video. You guys can go back, actually open the documentations and the resources I showed you guys. Read up on HTML attributes, read up on HTML tags, uh, get a little bit more understanding, then come back and try to recreate this thing, the same thing that I have just made, and save it the same way. Maybe see if there are some extensions that are missing that you would like to have, especially the one like the live server, and yeah, when you're recreating, try not to look at my code, try to recreate it by yourself and then double check it against mine. Okay? And that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.